Robert Angus was a self-made man. He was chairman and director of William Baird and Co. Ironmasters, who had works at Luga, Muirkirk. He built Ladykirk House from scratch and decorated it with no expense spared. He died in 1923. Cathcarts of Killochen Castle were an ancient Ayrshire family. Their isle is now in a very poor state of repair. At one time it was also used by the church session at Old Daly. Oswald Church is named for King Oswald of Northumbria. He won a battle there here. One time this land was ruled by the Northumbrians. Robert Burns has a number of relations buried here on his mother's side. Funerals within churches have been banned. The Kennedys of Culzean took advantage of the fact that a new church had been built at Kirkoswald, and they converted part of the old church into their aisle or mausoleum. You can see how the old kirk was modified to form the mausoleum. In the distance, you can see behind the trees the new kirk. Inside, there normally would be plaques around the walls, and maybe a crypt below which the actual bodies were buried. Another part of the old kirk is converted into an enclosure for the Reverend James Cadell or Cadell. He'd been minister at New Luce. He died in 1791. His wife, Sabella Butter, is also buried here. She'd lived at Ladybank and died in 1829. The term mausoleum was usually reserved for a building which was roofed over. This impressive mausoleum at St Kirks was built by James Campbell in 1822 for his wife Mary, who died aged 30 in 1821. It was designed by William Playfair, the famous architect. Other members of the family were also buried here. It was the Wallaces who had originally built Craigie House. Francis Dunlop, the great friend and patron of Robert Burns, was a member of that family. Of historical interest, the mausoleum no longer has any member of the family to help maintain it. Also, St Kirk's Church is no longer a place of worship. The name Charmer derives from the great Chamberlain of Scotland, one of the family holding that powerful position. Their enclosure lies within the ruins of the old Low Coylton Church. By marriage, the property of Gadgirth, their home, passed to the Burnett family, and one member of that is buried there. The Ferguson's Kilkerran Mausoleum in Daly or New Daly is perhaps one of the most impressive in South Ayrshire. It may have been designed by the famous architect William Adam. Its size may reflect their involvement and their wealth because of the slave trade. There were a number of distinguished members of the family. One of them was the governor of South Australia, later New Zealand, and also of Bengal. There's a statue to one of the family in Wellington Square in Ayr. The Magani Isle of the Dalrymple Hamiltons at Old Daly is another example of an old kirk being converted into a mausoleum. Another example is the Hamilton of Sundram Isle at the old Coylton Kirk. Nearby is a gravestone of the members of the family of Helen Kilpatrick, who was Burns' first love interest, and his first attempt at poetry was made upon her. Highly unusual enclosure at Lendal Foot commemorates in 1711 the drowning of Archibald Hamilton of King's Cross on Arran and his crew. Disturb ye not this small respect that's paid to sailors' clay is on the tombstone. Lieutenant General John Hughes of Mount Charles was buried here in 1832, also his wife, Pamela Hamilton of Sundram. The enclosure of the Kennedys and Whitfords at Michael Church is a little unusual in that it's just built out from the back of the church building itself, not particularly well constructed. There are plaques all around the walls, and no doubt the bodies are buried beneath. Bones are said to have been found within the monument to James Macrae at Monkton. It's thought that a group of his friends may have moved his body from St Cuthbert's in Monkton up to his monument. He's also famous for having provided the wealth that allowed a simple milkmaid, Elizabeth Maguire, to attract the attention and a wedding proposal from the 13th Earl of Glencairn. The entrance to Kirkmichael Church is the Ritchie Enclosure. This was a 16th century castle and is now a private house. He was a merchant from Glasgow. Another well-built enclosure attached to the side of the church is that of the Wallaces, originally of Carnell, later of Busby and Cloncaird. They were the chiefs of the clan Wallace. The enclosure dates from 1888. To the left can be seen at the top of the stairs leading up to the so-called Laird's Loft. This is where the Laird of the barony or of the district would sit rather than sit amongst the congregation. The old ruined Kirkus and Cuthbert lies at Monkton. It's here that William Wallace is said to have fallen asleep and had a dream of continuing his fight against Edward I. In the grounds is the impressive mausoleum of the Weires of Ampton and Kildonan.